What's up, CHFFL? We're live. Thank you for your patience. We're a little bit late here. This has been kind of crazy getting ready for, but I do think this is going to be a better format going forward. Just expect some bumps in the road today. We are live, and I'm going to be taking chats. I have scheduled for the end of this. I'm going to go through, and if you guys say anything or ask any questions or tell me I'm wrong about everything, I will address it, and that should be fun. I hope you enjoyed the little stream starting soon. I see that Parker did. That's one reason that we started a little late today, but I thought it was a nice touch. All right, so let's talk about week 4. Enough of the live stream chatter and whatnot. The average score up to 130.67, a lot higher than the previous 2 weeks. You know that I've been looking a lot at what average scores have been since we went to fractional scoring. I've been very interested to see how that would change things. And everybody was over 100 this week, even Marty, but it was a very rough week for Marty. Speaking of, we have a trade review, because after that bad week where Marty had a chance to get a big upset over Swan and he kind of blew it, and Cordero Patterson gets injured, Marty went out for some consumer therapy. Took up Parker's offer to trade for Davante Adams, sent him a second-round pick next year with no conditions, and Wan'Dale Robinson, a possible keeper, for Davante, and just a 10th. Now, I think that this is going to be good for both teams. Marty gets a deadly wide receiver duo here, and I think it's hard to argue that he doesn't have the best wide receivers in the Smut Hut Conference after this trade. Parker, though, is getting to start up his rebuild. And I think that this was a very strong return for Davante Adams. Please, again, forgive the live stream thing. I am trying to follow along and make sure that this is playing right. But my preview of it is now a few minutes behind. It looks like we're good. For Marty, I think this is right. Shoot your shot. He should have done it last year. He should have traded a lot more future draft capital to really go in. And he feels that, he's sitting 2-2. Grant's also 2-2. He's right in the thick of things and can compete this year. So now let's get into waiver report. And it was really, again with Marty, all the Rachaad White bidding war. Rachaad White, rookie pass catching back on the Buccaneers, stuck behind Leonard Fournette, but if they're going to throw the ball 50 times a game like they did last week, it seems like he's going to get a lot of targets going forward. All right. Parker wins the bidding war, $32, a bit more than I expected. I really kind of wanted this, and it was sneaky because it was post waivers. Marty dropped him after the game, so it wasn't a Wednesday waivers, it was a Thursday waivers. I was sitting there in second place at 21, Marty at 20, and then a few more bids, so most of the league was interested in White. But Parker adds a potential keeper. He's going to keep his keeper value and can be kept in the 10th next year. If for any reason the Buccaneers were to move on from Fournette, he becomes a huge value. Even if they don't, he's a pass-catching PPR back who could have flex low-end running back 2 upside next year. Parker really looking good, and I think he's been kind of like me. He hasn't had a big year where he's loaded up on picks and keepers. It's fun, Parker. So look forward to next year and keep trying to build while you can now. Post-waiver ads, there were a ton of other, what I'm going to call maintenance pickups this week. Trevor Lawrence, who Bill dropped. He decided to start Russell Wilson instead of Trevor Lawrence, which I'm smiling about because could save me this week. He got scooped up. J.D. McKissick, Josh Palmer, Taysom Hill, Robbie Anderson, Latavius Murray. Could be interesting. He didn't play Thursday, but Swan went in and got him ahead of the next game. We'll see if Swan's going to hold and have patience there to see if he can take more of the Javonte Williams touches that have been lost now that he's injured. Will Dissly, Alec Pierce. Looks like he could be a good pickup for me, which is disappointing because you'd rather have Michael Pittman be so dominant that Alex Pierce can't be good, but it is what it is. Hayden Hurst and a few more. So what this tells me, people aren't bidding on these guys. Rachaad White was the only real big value, but everybody's hungry. Everybody's hungry to find someone who could hit big, especially for quarterbacks and tight ends. Everybody's just trying to find someone that they can plug in and feel good about. All right, now we're going to get into predictions. We're going to do a little different. I haven't made any of my predictions yet. We're going to go through the games all live here. 19-5 on the season so far after going 4-2 last week. I missed the game of the week. I feel like I'm missing all these big game of the week upset calls. But Banis, team of the week, 2 weeks in a row. And as noted on the Two Tight Ends podcast, really appears that Brad and Jason have put together a super team. Great management this year. They've been getting praised since the draft, and they really deserve it. Marty blows his big opportunity. Max does not, upsetting Mark and keeping it to 2-2. So we're going to transition here and look at my browsers. Let's look at the standings. We're going to start in the MAGA Gang conference this week, because I think you know what our game of the week is going to be. A very big one between Banis and the undefeated Swan. But Bill and I sitting both at 3-1, and we play this week. So that's going to be a very interesting matchup. Stan is at 2-2. Max also 2-2. Mark also 2-2, and Minnie at the bottom. So the MAGA Gang is really all bunched together here. I don't know. I don't know how things are going to work out, but I know that everybody wants to leave. This is the last week of conference play before 4 weeks of interleague. Everybody wants to get those nice matchups. So let's go ahead and look at our first game. We'll start with Bill and myself. The Thursday game, Bill had Russell Wilson. Just looks so disappointing this year. They're trying to blame it on an injury, but boy, he is just not his past self. I had Michael Pittman, 10.9 points. I mean, it's not what I wanted when I went out and traded for him, but it's a good start, and the Thursday game definitely favors me. This was potentially going to be my team of the week before that, but I think this slides it a little too much. You see, I have Fantasypros weekly rankings up here. They have they give a score out of 100 every week. They have Derek and I at 94, and they have Bill down at 89. So before the Thursday games were even played, liked me a little bit, and I think now I'm going to have to stay with myself for the prediction. Interesting here, the Eagles defense and the Buccaneers defense playing Atlanta and Arizona. I think Atlanta's been doing pretty well this year. I think part of that is their level of competition. I still think Atlanta's a good matchup for an opposing defense, but the Eagles, Arizona could be pretty kind of tough one. The Eagles defense has just been so good. So you got two really good defenses against two possibly tough matchups. We'll see how that goes. Mike Evans looking great with Brady back in and throwing a ton. And then injuries are just the story for me and Derek. And Allen Robinson should be dropped. There's just nobody I would rather have than him at this point. But Jonathan Taylor out, and Keenan Allen likely out again. Has only really played one quarter. That's one of the biggest busts so far, and it stinks when a bust is because of an injury. But yeah, I'm going to stick with Derek and I to take this one. All right, next let's move over to Lady G's Beard, Mark, versus Grab Her by the Pelosi, Stan. Mark starting Geno Smith. Geno Smith is a much better start than Russell Wilson, and it's a crazy world we live in. Miles Sanders has been proving the haters wrong so far, and has been mid to upper RB2, not low RB2 to mid flex as expected. Cooper Kupp, always solid, of course. Jamar Chase, underperforming by Jamar Chase standards, but not by anybody else's standards this year. Stan on the other side, Cortland Sutton had 12.4 points on Thursday. I guess I should note that Brandon McManus had 9 for Mark. Solid, both of them just kind of solid days, not tilting too much in either direction there. Tyler Higbee, can he continue to be a target hog and a really good tight end for Stan? Obviously, Stan hopes so. Tight end so hard to come by this year. Going against Waller on the other side for Mark. It's going to be an interesting matchup. Joe Burrow throwing a ton, and Derrick Henry just starting to look really great. I love how much Henry's involved in the passing game this year compared to the past, where he always had this stigma that if you're in a standard league, you'd much rather have Henry, but if you're PPR, he just doesn't catch the ball, so knocks him down a few spots. And that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. So huge upside there. Drake London now. The problem is when you're playing Mark and you're going up against Cooper Kupp and Jamar Chase, Cortland Sutton getting 12.4 points just doesn't seem like enough. Fantasypros likes Mark by a few points here, and then the Thursday game favored him as well. I'm going Mark here too. I'm gonna stay safe. I've been picking a lot of upsets this year, but I'm not gonna do it here. Picking Mark over Stan. Now, our last game in the MAGA gang conference, we have Minnie, who's looking like he could start 0-5 versus Max. This year's big surprise, like we were saying this time last year, Max's team looks much better than it should have going into the draft. Max gets 6 points on Thursday from the Packers defense and is right there tied for third place and tied for a playoff spot in MAGA Gang Conference so far. Aaron Jones, 7.2 points in the game going on right now in the third quarter between Green Bay and the Giants. So not that great so far, but he still has half to get into the end zone. It's a live show now. What are you gonna do? See, Jamal Williams, Swift is out again this week, so Minnie again has that extra pretty much RB1. Chris Godwin getting back in the swing of things. Minnie's team is not as out of it as Parker's is. They're both 0-4. Parker's mountain seems insurmountable with all those super teams in the Smut Hut Conference, and really it's 3 super teams, and now Marty with Devontae Adams. I just don't see any way Parker can make it back. Minnie's only 2 games back, and he's right there. I mean, Swift is going to come back, so Williams isn't going to have that value for too much longer, but Thielen seems to be more consistent than we may have thought at the beginning of the season. Kamara's going to play this week. We'll see. Where do you put him in? You put him in at flex? I think you have to play Kamara. So Minnie's team has plenty of talent. Kyler Murray at quarterback. But then on the other side, Max, Josh Jacobs. I think I pointed it out in the draft recap 2 tight ends podcast, but I thought Josh Jacobs was a tremendous value for Max. How he kind of fell past the tier of running backs that he should have had. You have the 2 Samuels giving you a good floor. We're still waiting on George Kittle to have a George Kittle game, and I still think that it's coming. He was injured. They're working him back into it. Garrett Wilson all over the place. Max doesn't have Rashad Penny in there after the blow-up game last week. This is a tough call. Let's see. Fantasypros has Minnie at an 89 and Max down at an 86. Looking at both of these, Max has 6 from the Packers defense, and that could only go down going forward. I like Max here. So I'm going to go against the consensus a little, against the Fantasypros consensus, and I'm going to take Max. This is a really tight game, and for Minnie, even if the team is good and he's still in it right now, I just don't see how you can come back from being 0-5. He absolutely needs this. All right, so that does the MAGA gang. Let's now move over to the Smut Hut. I'm going to check out the standings. My internet will cooperate with me. It's a live show now. Swan, the cook destroyed me. And I guess that goes to everybody who thought that Swan would not be 4-0. Dalvin Cook has torn through 4 teams so far, but has his most difficult challenge yet this week with Banis, who's 3-1, and then you have Grant and Marty under them at 2-2, fighting for that third spot. Wes at 1-3 is really the underdog at this point. He's still there, but his team just on paper does not seem up to par with those 4 teams ahead of them. And then Parker, who with the sale of Adams has pretty much written in that this is a rebuilding year. Before we go into the predictions here, I do want to look at points 4 and just see the disparity between the conferences. Grant, Banis, Swan are your top 3 scorers on the year, all from one conference. Not what I expected. I knew that Grant and Swan were going to be really good, but I didn't expect the disparity between the conferences to be as big as it is. Very big surprise. And let's get into our games in the Smut Hut. We're going to save, of course, Cook Destroy Me and Face Jam 2. That is the game of the week. Let's go to Wes's Pokeballs and Pussycats versus Marty's Thrusters. And yeah, it's a live show, but I'm still going to try to avoid saying the really raunchy names. Thank you again, Banis, for picking that as the conference theme. Let's see here. We got Wes, projected at 120.9. No players going so far, none on Thursday. Marty, same, projected 123. No players yet. So Marty is the favored here, which is to be expected. He has Adams fresh in the lineup. We'll start looking at Marty because David Montgomery going to play this week. So how much does that leave for Khalil Herbert on a Bears team that is, you just are not excited to start anybody in that offense if they're going to be splitting carries. Devin Singletary, kind of like I was saying with Derrick Henry earlier, obviously Singletary isn't on Henry's level, but he's getting a lot more passing work than you expected. Unfortunately for me, you were hoping that James Cook was going to come in and be that receiving back role, but they're just letting Singletary do everything. So I think he's being a little underrated right now, and I'm very guilty of it. I had a potential trade for him in the Dynasty League, and I just didn't see it, but they are sticking with him. Ezekiel Elliott, of course, been a disappointment, but Marty still has him there in flex. Dalton Schultz, same thing. Nobody can find consistent tight ends or ones that they still trust, but then you have Diggs and Adams. It's going to be fun to see that for the first week. 2, I would call top 5. I think your top 5 wide receivers are it's Kupp, Chase, Adams and Diggs, and Jefferson. Jefferson's been having a bit of a down year, but still in that top 5. But Marty's got 2 of them now. So real excited to see how that goes. Over with Wes, Patrick Mahomes had kind of the Josh Allen treatment last week where they scored so many points and that passing wasn't necessary in the second half, trying to hold off Brady from coming back. Didn't get as many points in the second half. Najee just not being the running back one that we want. We'll see how the offense changes with Kenny at quarterback. Everybody knows I'm the biggest Kenny Pickett supporter, so I don't need to say anything else here. Breece Hall looking stronger week by week, but is it going to be enough for West to challenge these super teams? Not sure. George Pickens rolling the dice again with Kenny. He's going to favor the rookie. And Hawk, after that major 39-point week last week, obviously you don't expect that all the time, but is he finally becoming a bigger part of that offense? I owned Hawkinson in my family league last year and just felt like a lot of 0 games where he was disappearing, not showing up. Fantasypros has West down towards the bottom at an 81 and Marty not too much higher at 86, but I do think there's some mojo there after going and getting the purchase. I like Marty here because I like Adams and Diggs. I like guys who can have the blow-up games and who are at the absolute top. Next, we have Parker, Schindler's very sad fist, and Grant, projected at 153 right now versus Parker projected at 102. Don't have to spend a lot of time here. Do any of you guys have this happen with ESPN where the names don't change when you switch from game to game? Very frustrating glitch for me, but it's a live show. Refresh and get these names fixed here. All right, let's see. For Wes, we were just on Wes. For Parker, go ahead and look at chats. I don't see any chats recently. That's okay. I'm sure people are watching and have a lot to say. And let's see. For Parker, we got Jared Goff, who's actually been great. The Lions have been a fast-paced, up-tempo offense, throwing a lot. A.J. Dillon, only 2.1 points so far in the third quarter of that Giants-Packers game. Allen Lazard at 8.9 right now. He's having a good game with another quarter still to go, and it's still close enough they could be throwing the ball. So Parker hoping to get a few more points there, but nothing to be excited about now that Adams is gone and Williams is on the IR. And then on the other side, you have Grant. Broncos defense was a good pick Thursday. 2 very sad offenses playing, gets 18 points, and then got McCaffrey, Hurts, who's a top quarterback now, if not the top quarterback, Tyreek, Metcalf. These teams aren't close. Let's not waste more time here. I pick Grant. Finally, our game of the week. Undefeated Swan. The Cook destroyed me. 4-0 versus our back-to-back team of the week winner, Bannis and Jason's Face Jam 2. Now, Saquon Barkley only has 9.4 points so far, but he's involved in every aspect of that offense. So we're going to keep a close eye on how that Packers-Giants game goes over the next hour or so before our 1 o'clock games. Then on the other side, Romeo Dubs. It's Daubs. I'm looking at it and I want to pronounce it Daubs, but I haven't heard anybody else say that. I guess I'm crazy. Anyway, Robio, 4.1. Where for art thou through 3 quarters? So neither team out to a huge start here in our game of the week. Swan currently projected 132. Banis projected at 141. He really is the super team now. Brady finally last week showed up. We'll see. We finally have the head-to-head between Lamar Jackson and Tom Brady. So, of course, I'm excited to see which of them has a better game this week. Justin Jefferson hasn't really been the Justin Jefferson that you want. What's his points per game? Let's see. I mean, he is ranked 4th at the position. The problem has been the 10 and the 4.4. He's been way more boom or bust than you were hoping that he would be, but the booms are still very nice. Leonard Fournette involved in the passing game a lot for those Bucks. Solid. Dallas Goddard becoming one of the top tight ends in the league simply because he doesn't have the big down weeks that everybody else does. And then the Bills defense playing canny. We'll see. Something I'm keeping an eye on. Over on the other side, Ban is just so solid. You got Joe Mixon, who's just a volume king, which is really good. For CHFFL scoring, we give the bonus for 10 carries. Works out very well. A.J. Brown, top receiver this year and probably going forward. Now that Hurts has stopped being the old Hurts. T. Higgins, the much safer of the deadly Cincinnati duo, even if he's not up to Chase's level in terms of boom weeks yet. Mark Andrews, best tight end. Fantasy's team is just so good. Fantasypros has these guys neck and neck at 196. Everything on paper says I should pick Banis. And I have picked Swan to lose at least once or twice this year. So I'm going to go opposite. I think Swan just keeps winning. I think this is a magic year, and I think he pulls it off. So that's going to be it for previews this week. I'm very excited. This is a very big week. We'll go into interleague play next week. And let's see, it is time to take chats. If we have any. I do not see any, since Parker said that I'm good a little while ago. So I encourage you, this is the time where if you have a YouTube account and you're watching live and you chat, I will address it. And I think that would be fun. So that's going to be it for this week. Thank you for watching. I hope you watched. I know this was a little messier. I can tell while I'm here. It was a little messier. I'm going to get better at it as we go forward. And remember, the people in glass houses should still take their Thursday players out of their flex. We'll see you next